welcome to the Courage for Freedom podcast. I am Jason McDonald, and I am here today with two wonderful women who are involved with the organization. We're here with Heather Ellis and Kelly Tallon Franklin. Maybe Heather, you can start by introducing yourself and just talking about your role with the organization. And Kelly, if you want to jump on after that.
Super. Thanks, Jason. So my name's Heather Ellis, and I am currently the Business and Professional Women of Ontario president. And while I was a district director and the resolutions chair, is when I became involved with Kelly and learning about what a big issue human trafficking is in Ontario. So currently, I've worked with Kelly on the project En route, and I was a data collection person, and so I've continued that role on. It's a very critical role, and what we do is we collect publicly sourced information on people that we believe, organizations that will support us in making this a national campaign or movement, because we know it's happening all across Canada, and so we need to address it. So that's my role as my part in Project Maple Leaf.
Yeah, and I'm Heather's sister from another Mr. and Mama. I'm Kelly Tallon Franklin. I'm actually a survivor of human trafficking and sexual exploitation, child sexual abuse. And I choose to talk today about what is happening currently, because my story is when dinosaurs roamed the earth. But it's relevant that the crime is still the same. Buyers are still commodifying young girls and boys, our children, and exploiting them in Canada on our watch. That 68 to 72% of all those that are trafficked in Canada are minor aged, that 98% of all trafficking in Canada are Canadians, and that we have a civic responsibility to answer. So that's why we're here to talk to Jason, who actually is our podcast lead for our national task force. And he's just got an incredible heart to be a solution finder. So Jason, thanks for having us.
Oh, well, Kelly, I think a lot of those things are things that you instill in other people. And definitely, you're the person that has kind of drawn all of the people involved into this organization into it in the first place. So I want to touch on something that I think is a particularly interesting story, and it's about the Courage for Freedom Challenge and a young 16-year-old survivor who challenged you personally to kind of, I guess, change the way that this issue was discussed. Could you give us a little bit of a background about what that is and where that comes from and what that story is about?
So Courage for Freedom has been around for a while, and in 2013 as a registered charity really took on the singular focus of this issue. Heather has actually visited where we do horse therapy and healing initiatives. She's seen that we've created safe spaces and programs and just supports and built networks. And Jason, to just be honest, there are a ton of people that have worked on this issue a lot longer than us. We have come in kind of as the next wave of energy. So I just want to give credit where credit is due first to all those survivors, all those NGOs, all those agencies and organizations. We're not here to usurp what they did. We're an and also organization driving in our lane and trying to add. And what happened is we saw that there was a gap in community response capacity and care to minors. And it was like the hole in the bucket was getting bigger, and there were more and more young persons being manipulated, exploited, coerced, bought and sold, period, as commodities, child rape, really. And so we just couldn't ignore it. And I had to be public about my story and started working with a lot of minors. I'd have police calling me, asking for advice and support, because our Horses That Heal program really did a good job of dealing with the PTSD-induced trauma, which is the first thing in any care setting. The young girl that I was working with, my husband, and Heather has met her, will attest to the fact that if I had a natural born daughter, it would have been her. Oh my goodness, she's full of cheek. And she was cheeky enough that when we were driving across the province to go and take her to some appointments for children's services and court support and medical health and mental health, she was just cheeky. We got off the highway to get gas, went inside, and there were those looming posters, the doom and gloom posters that have the gray background. Everybody's in black and white and gray. And there's a picture of a girl who could be anybody's daughter, except she didn't look like anybody's daughter. And so she had slutty clothes on that were ripped and torn and very often dirty. She was often sitting in a very precarious position down on the curb. It looked dingy. Her hair would be stringy, and there would be a looming figure behind her with their arms folded, male figure, and of course they would be headless. So in her cheek, I probably bought lunch for both of us. So she was full of probably piss and vinegar from A&W. She said to me, well, no wonder why nobody found me. Look at these posters. This doesn't look like me. It doesn't look like any girl I've ever known that's my age that was trafficked. And who the HE double hockey sticks in their right mind would get involved in this scenario, looking like it is a horror flick. And the last thing she said is, and I don't know why the police are running around trying to arrest human traffickers. They're right here. They're headless men. So we just need to round up all the headless men and trafficking would be done. And away we went. And it sat with me. And she challenged me to think about this differently, to understand that they were our sons and our daughters. They were our young women and our women and boys. And from any orientation, they were criminalized, they were victimized, they were grossly misunderstood, and they weren't being protected. And it broke my heart, and I listened. And I shared the story with Heather as my business and professional women's sister. I actually am the business and professional women Canadian ad hoc chair for this issue. And we couldn't ignore that she told us something we needed to listen to. And so we just started a journey to destigmatize the way we were messaging this out, that it was an over there issue and it was a that population issue. And it was, let's blame a demographic for their victimization issue. And let's scare the bejesus out of our community, right, Heather? That, you know, those old blue-haired ladies that go with their purses into McDonald's or did before COVID, drinking those coffees, we could teach them to see not only signs of trafficking, but to understand behaviors, because that's the key. It's not just a sign, it's a behavior. And then give them something positive that they could do about it that wasn't going to endanger them. And Heather jumped at this because Heather is intelligent and she's a solutions gal.
Well, there's more to that, Kelly. So, so there's a few things. So, ironically, around the time that Kelly and I were introduced to a mutual friend, Stephanie Brown, what had happened was BPW, as we call ourselves, both provincially and nationally, we've been writing resolutions on human trafficking for years. So it's always been sort of there. And we had just recently done a resolution the year before, and so I was there. And then all of a sudden, my husband's a teacher, and I'm a teacher as well. And you know, he came home and he says, "Oh, you should have been at this workshop." And I was like, "What do you mean? Why didn't you tell me I would have come?" But it, you know, anyhow. But the other thing is prior to becoming a teacher, I was a student supervision monitor, and I was actually busting kids for skipping. And in hindsight, as I learned about the issue, some of those children could have very well have been being trafficked, and I think some of them were. And so I
Or
had
at
guilt.
least groomed, right, Heather?
Yeah, they were being groomed and lured. And so for me, all of a sudden I had some guilt happening because it was like, oh my God, why didn't I? But as Kelly has helped me understand, I didn't know better.
Yeah.
I'm an academic, I'm a keener. I never skipped. So I didn't understand why people would skip school. So I learned through them. Now, I've never gone back and asked any of them if it happened. But that's part of the reason, because I don't want to see one more child being victimized in this way. It's just awful that we live in this great country and people think this is okay to do to kids. It just blows my mind. And to tell people, and I'm from a little town, so I live in a small town, a rural town, and now I used to live in London, Ontario. And that was part of the disconnect, was because the resolutions were coming from big cities. So to me, it was a big city issue. It couldn't be happening in my backyard. And then that's what flipped me out when I realized it's happening right here. And so I haven't been able to shut my mouth since. And so that's basically what it boils down to. And it's because of movements like Project Maple Leaf, where we have that opportunity, because we need more communities to understand it's happening there. And when you look at those gray ones, no way, nobody wants to be part of it. When you look at the Project En Route video, it's so positive, and it's what the girls look like. And that's part of the problem. We missed it. So now we have a responsibility. We, as the adults, have a responsibility to our children.
Right.
Like, oh my goodness, Jason, if we think that we're going to make this a teenager's responsibility to learn all about this with a frontal lobe and a cerebral cortex that is not fully functioning until they're 24, and we're asking them to mitigate the risk against a criminal, who are the people that are being ridiculous? Well, I think it's the adults.
Right. Oh, absolutely. And that, that's it's really taking into perspective a lot of the other factors that are kind of tied up in this, with different social issues that I guess we haven't addressed up till this point. And it's great to see that an organization is taking an issue seriously and taking a realistic approach to actually talking about the issues that are right here in our own backyard. And I think this is something that you definitely described very well. It's something that until we assign a face to the problem, we're not going to understand it, and we certainly won't be able to solve it. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the successes that you've seen recently in dealing with or in working in this campaign. And a little bit before we were talking, you mentioned that there has been a little bit of success with getting a day of national awareness designated. Could you give us a little bit of information about that and what people might want to reflect on when we do come up to that day?
So there has been lots of, as Heather said, excuse me, they've been writing resolutions. People have been trying to organize, but there was a switch that started to happen a few years back where the governments started to listen to survivors. So the very persons that could give them intel and real insight into what was needed and to request acknowledgement from their pain and their trauma. There's years that we've requested that the Awareness Day for Human Trafficking was not just Ontario and Alberta. The United States has a whole month. And although there's some parliamentarians that ask some hard questions today, in Parliament, on the Hill, are all political parliamentary group stood for survivors to request a day be marked in time and history as February 22nd to make it a national awareness day, to unify us on this issue. Now, there's conversations that happened that said, well, marking it a day and not doing the work in Parliament, well, it's not either or. Mark the day. Give survivors something that they can understand their government cares about them enough to mark the day and acknowledge their pain, their suffering, and for a lot of them, the use of their voices and their resources to fight, to end this, that nobody ever has to be forced into violent situations, forced or controlled or sexually commodified, whether on a screen or in person. And so today it was a big win in Parliament because we now officially will have our first National Day this coming Monday. And as a survivor, I cried. And for everybody that's fought ahead, I cried for them too. I think I cried for everybody. I'm a crier. But what I understand is that we can now hold the government accountable to check in year to year to see what have we done and where are we as Canadians and how are we moving the dial and how are we enacting legislation that is current and progressive, and it translate into a global arena as well, not just for Canada. And so we have lots of work to do, but today was a big win and we can breathe for all of 5 seconds.
That's awesome.
Well, and it's great to hear that story. You know, I think a lot of times when we talk about designating a national day of awareness for something, it's possible that sometimes the significance of what that day represents is lost on people. And
Yeah.
I think it's definitely important to hear the human side of the story on this. And I know, you know, as you're mentioning, this success isn't just something that materialized out of nowhere. And I want to talk about one of the things that was significant coming out of Project En Route, and that's the Center to End Human Trafficking, and especially the national hotline. And I just want to ask you, Kelly, why is it significant that we have this push and this organization and this hotline as well?
So one of the things, they've been working on this for a long time, and it was a lot of heavy lifting by a lot of caring people, an intersection with government cooperatively. And to put this out nationally, there was a couple of reasons why it was important. And Heather would understand this as well, because when BPW is trying to resolution write for Canada or even internationally or for provinces, there was not a place that disseminated consistent, available information and data. And so we know from the fight in this that there wasn't a collective space, first of all, that there was a hotline for Canada. And believe me, there's been some really great models like Polaris out of the United States that gave us some roadmaps that we could follow, but Canadianize them. Canada is a beautiful country, but we are really separated by huge land masses. So polarizing something in Canada makes it more difficult. And it also gave criminals more access to travel between the provinces. Provinces not having supports or information to share province to province, to know about the rates or the conviction rates or the arrests or what was happening in shelters and violence against women's organizations, what they were seeing, what RCMP was seeing versus local police, what was happening with the Crown, which organizations were doing which work, and how could you centralize it? That's basically what they did. And so now we don't have a number you call in Ontario that you have to get another card. The Ontario hotline went down when the Canadian Centre to End Human Trafficking number went up. And for us, we asked permission during Project En Route to make sure across the province of Ontario, we paid for their advertising willingly, because that's what you do when you're working together. And we said, if we could talk to every single person for Project En Route, and if we could put the number in their phone and just teach them when to call, why to call, and what to say, and to not feel guilty if they weren't right about their gut feeling. Because the person at the center is answering the phone anyways. But if they're right and they can help somebody and they could network somebody, and the beauty of the center was also they had the foresight to say, you can call if you're an officer, a victim services person, a parent, if you're a victim yourself, if you have a friend, you know, we all have a friend we want to ask information about. So it gave people the opportunity to call in and to start the work together. Is it perfect? No, nothing is that we work on, because the minute we find something perfect, the criminals and those that are buying girls find a way around it. So the center is continuing to evolve, and they have continued to say to us, keep us in the loop about what you're doing. We are all in about your challenge and the things that you want to see accomplished as a nation. And that's the gist of building a movement of people that will just focus on one thing: end the buying and selling of girls and boys in Canada. I'm going to say this till I have no breath, that when we can polarize a message that we can agree on and let the other things sit at the side of this and focus on this, we are going to do great things. And everybody belongs at the solution table. Moms, dads, grandmas, grandpas, corporates, industries, civics, organizations, unions, educational institution, public health and safety, mental health, community health, doctors, lawyers, truckers, engineers, ditch diggers, construction workers, funeral home directors, hotel, motel management. We all belong at this table. These are our kids.
Right. And that, I think that's definitely a very inclusive message that I think, you know, more people need to find things like that they can connect to. And I think that this movement is definitely something that people can latch on to. So just in the last couple of minutes here, maybe Heather, I can throw this one over to you. I just want to talk about the Eradicate Challenge, and this will definitely be something that I'm sure we'll be talking lots about as it evolves and develops. But Heather, could you tell us just a little bit about this little plug here, and how people can get involved with it?
Oh, I can so easily talk about this. Thank you, Jason. So the Eradicate Challenge came from the idea from the project that we wanted to spread the word. What was a fun way to spread the word? Because this is not a fun topic. And so the idea here is that you either take a video of yourself holding this, and if you're like me, you need the notes on the back to be able to read it, to be able to say, you know, I, Heather Ellis, want to end the buying and selling of children, boys, and girls in Canada. Boom. And then I challenged 5 of my buddies to say, you're going to do that. I put it on my, just 5 at a time. And then, you're already there. So what happens is then we tag it, and on the back, or we include instructions, and it tells you what to do and how to do the hashtags and tag those individuals on your social media so that they know. And what we're hoping is on February 22nd, that we're going to have a big launch, and we're going to have a huge and wrap around, you know, where people are going to be sending the message out. And that's one of the ways, that's where we found the success with Project En Route. Social media was a great help in helping us get the word out. So if people want a sign, they go to send an email to info@courageforfreedom.org. and they will send you a sign. You can ask for also the video. There's a video link to demo of how to do it as well if you're nervous about it and you haven't done it. So you either do a video or you do a picture and you post it to your social media. And then we're shooting for July 30th is a really big day. And that is the UN Day to end the trafficking of persons. And that is really, really important. So that's where we're really now putting the push on to really get people across Canada involved. And if you know people, so don't just tag people in Ontario, tag them in Nova Scotia, in BC, wherever you know people, get them to do that. And then hopefully it's a ripple effect, right? It's that idea. So the Eradicate Challenge is a very easy thing. It doesn't cost us anything except for a few minutes of our time. Uh-oh, what's she going to do?
And you can have fun with this. So my dog is going to be there. I might have a couple other outfits. I might find an iconic photo like the Beatles walking across the road and see if I can replicate that with a sign. I think Margie on our task force has already got that one. So if we can have fun with this, because this is a really hard issue to talk about, if we can have fun with it, and I'm not asking you to dump ice over your head during winter, although that was a great challenge, but this is different. All you have to do is add your voice, hold the sign, take a picture or video, use the hashtags, and challenge some people to end the buying and selling of girls and boys, children in Canada. It almost sounds too simple. But know that all those people on this national task force and all the allies and all the NGOs and agencies, they're going to continue to do the work to make sure they're looking after folks that need care and self-directed, trauma-informed, person-centric supports. But while they're doing that, we're going to keep building the movement, and we're going to keep looking for provincial and national research. We're going to keep looking for coalition studies and anything we can find to build it into our database so that after July 30th, when we plan to have a big party to be announced where we're going to meet, hopefully it's Parliament, COVID willing, every Parliament in every province and national Parliament, we're going to have a party on the lawn, COVID willing. And then we can really do the work to write the resolutions, working with legislatures to enact change that will protect and will speak to what the heart of Canadians is. Who do we want to be in this issue? We don't want to be known as the armpit of the world. So we're going to work on it. And meanwhile, Heather and I are going to have fun. We're going to take strange videos. My dog might be involved. I think there might be a horse involved. I don't know, Jason, you can play around with this and see if you can animate our signs for us.
Yeah, I'll have to talk to the
Are you gonna hold your sign?
Sorry?
Jason, are you gonna hold your sign for February 22nd? Can you make that commitment right now on this podcast?
Absolutely, yes, I will.
And you're gonna circle back to it in July and rehold the sign to say, where are we at with the challenge?
I think I would love, that would be something I would love to do. And I'm sure that there are lots of other people out there as well that would love to grab onto this challenge. So I think that that's just an awesome way to end it. I think that this challenge really, hits at the important part of this movement, and that's getting more people involved, especially through social media. And then is there something that you wanted to say, Kelly?
Yeah.
Okay.
The most important thing, this isn't all about us. This is about what a 16-year-old survivor started and asked us to do. And she asked us to go national because it's not enough to do it in Ontario. It has to go coast to coast to coast. And if it's an organization that's getting involved to do this, when they cross-post this out, we can repost them and celebrate their organization as collaborators in this and part of the solution in Canada. It's not about us. It's about the victim survivors' voices being heard, amplified. We're taking direction for them. We're working together as community. We're enabling governmental will, and then we're celebrating those doing the hard work in every community. Not about us. It's about them.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, I don't think that could be said any better. I just want to thank both of you again for taking the time out of your very busy schedules to engage with us on this podcast. And I just want to mention now that all of the links to the things that we're talking about here and with the Eradicate Challenge will be part of the description after this. And we will be back again after this. So thank you both very much, and I'll see you again soon.
Sure,
Thanks,
take care.
Bob.
Thank you so much, Jason. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for
Bye.
coming on.